Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us for this month's Eloqua user group. We're delighted to have Stephen Streich with us from Oracle, and I'll introduce you to Stephen just in a few moments. But let's get started and outline the day for you, or the morning, I should say. So, first of all, welcome and housekeeping. We'll then look a little into what happened in Las Vegas and sort of get some feedback from Stephen about the Oracle Cloud World event, and he'll provide us with a bit of a wrap-up in relation to everything that happened there, with obviously a bit of a focus on Eloqua, and that will fall into a bit of a roadmap discussion. We'll then look at Eloqua Release 23D with the information that we have available at the moment, and then we'll go from there. So please, as usual, questions throughout. You're more than welcome to do that. Just use the Q&A function as you do that. So again, Stephen is the General Vice President of Product for Oracle Marketing. So hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And next we have our CEO, Adrian Jones, and also one of our account directors as well, Sean Camello, on the line. So thanks, guys, for joining us. And my name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for this morning. So thanks again for making some time to be with us. I can see there's still a few more people dropping in, so we'll just soldier on and get started. So as you know, for those who attend regularly, we use Zoom to host our webinars, and replays will be available on our blog within a week or so. Feel free, as I said, to please ask questions throughout. That is our usual format. Just be aware those questions you ask are public and you can upvote them. So if somebody else has already seen them, you're good to go. If you wanted to use the Zoom chat function, you could definitely do that, but that will be private. So feel comfortable to do that if you'd like. And that probably takes us into a nice segue to have a bit of a chat with Stephen and find out about what happened in Vegas, and does what happens in Vegas stay in Vegas? So my line there was, well, hopefully not. Hopefully it doesn't stay in Vegas. So Stephen, thanks again for joining us. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So tell us about Vegas. How many times have you been to Vegas in the course of your career?
As I mentioned, I think to you before, this scene is very familiar to me. I know exactly where this is in the Venetian, what bridge it's on, and what restaurants it's pointed at. I've been probably going to Vegas for conferences for about 20 years. My first one was at the MGM Grand before this hotel was even built, the Venetian, and that was a supply chain conference. And so I've been going to Vegas for quite a number of years. It's always great to see customers and coworkers you don't see all the time, but I need to take it in small doses.
So I think the very first time I went to Vegas was to MGM Grand to see a show, and I cannot for the life of me remember what that show was. But
Yeah,
it was definitely
that used to be the hotel on the Strip for that, and Caesar's Palace, and yeah.
I think I might have had hair when that happened. So anyway, but so tell me, what sort of numbers do you get at these events, and who's attending? It's clients, obviously Oracle staff.
Yeah, this was back to feeling like a very sizable conference. I think there was about 18,000 people. So when you have them, I mean, the Venetian has a large convention area, so there's space there. But as you know, it's very circuitous, and so when you try to put 18,000 people into even a very large hotel, it's very busy and it's very vibrant. And we also had the Oracle Health Conference going on at the same time. So we had customers across tech and database and applications, and then as well the health customers too. And it was a really lively atmosphere that was just reminiscent of kind of pre-COVID conference times.
Yeah, we're starting to see more of those in our part of the world here in Sydney as well. And it is nice to see the conference centers busy with people moving about and getting involved.
Yeah.
So these events always have a bit of a musical theme. There's either a headline act or some other type of routine. So who were you lucky to see, or did you get a chance to see anybody this time?
I only saw it for a brief moment because I was hosting a customer dinner. So I think I saw about half an hour of it. And it was one of these super groups, as they're called, where they've picked people typically from bands. It was mostly people from like bands that were really big in the 90s and early 2000s on more of the alternative music scene. And they picked lead singers, guitarists, bassists, drummers that are famous in their own right from being in these bands, but they pulled them together in kind of a compilation or a composition or a super group, as you were. And they played songs not originals, but from the various bands that they came from that were all very well known to the crowd. So
All
it's
right.
kind of like interesting from that perspective.
Sounds like a fun idea. So
Yeah.
there was one topic that kind of permeated across the conference. Now there's 18,000 people and you've got the health conference as well. But if there was kind of one thing that was a theme throughout, what would that be in your mind?
Yeah, I think probably hands down it was generative AI. A lot of conversation around that. It's very topical, but also very much something that we're investing in across the board. And we've developed partnerships with to deliver large language models on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as a service.
Mhm.
Very interesting topic. It drew any session with generative AI in the title drew a very large crowd, but also we had a lot to say about it. I think that was probably the overwhelming topic. A lot of interesting side topics, particularly coming out of Larry's keynote, where he was very focused on applications of artificial intelligence in health and also in broader macroeconomic topics like agriculture and so forth. So some of that stuff is pretty interesting too.
That health acquisition you mentioned too, that's going to be interesting to see how that rolls out. Is
There's so much opportunity to, digitize and unify individual health records, and then in a privacy safe way, be able to really learn from all the different trends and all the different symptoms and all the different things to help doctors with patient outcomes and correctly diagnose things that don't rely on an individual doctor's experience and understanding, but can be informed by thousands of previous cases.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Did you manage to get a show in while you were in Vegas? I mean, it sounds like all you were doing was entertaining dinner.
Yeah, no, these things tend to be back to back, 7 a.m. to into the evenings with customers and partners, and I had 3 sessions that I presented in myself. So no shows. I can't actually remember the last time I saw a show in Vegas, but some good dinners. I did see a concert several years ago. The Sphere, I don't know, people may be aware they just built this new multi-billion-dollar massive sphere, which is like the largest dome structure in the world now. That was fascinating to see. It was right outside my hotel room window. It's got constantly evolving pictures on the outside, and U2 just played the first concert there, I think a week ago or so. So
I
maybe
literally saw somebody on LinkedIn had used their iPhone and they were saying the iPhone's not doing any justice, but that was the first I'd seen or heard of it.
oh, you Google Las Vegas Sphere and you're in for some interesting visuals. It's massive, and because of the scale, you don't get a good sense of it proportionately, but it's quite interesting.
Add that to the Vegas list. Now, what about the Marquee Awards? So, the Marquee Awards for the clients and those who are on the call with us, I keep saying call, but it's a webinar, same thing. Run the webinar with us. The Marquee is an annual thing. It started pre-acquisition. So, this was something Eloqua started a long time ago.
It
And
did.
so,
Yeah.
tell us about there was a dinner, I believe.
There was, yeah. So the awards have changed over the years. We expanded them as several years. So I've been with Eloqua since 2007, which is right around the time we did the first Marquee Awards, back when we used to call the conference Eloqua Experience, and it's gone through many iterations over time. And so we expanded them probably about 4 years ago or so to also include other areas of CX. So sales, service, not just marketing, but they are still tend to be very marketing focused just because that's where the preponderance of like submissions come from. and across different things like lead management and ecosystem integration and global campaigns with translation and localization, a lot of things like that. There's an awards dinner. It used to be a kind of a big black tie event. It's a little more subdued now, but it was still a very nice large dinner at a fancy restaurant in Vegas. And people were recognized for both the nominees and the winners were recognized for their achievements. Some customers local to your area, like Australia Lifeblood, won an award. I think University of Tasmania was nominated. They didn't win, unfortunately. That was a very hotly contested category. That was a lead management category, I think.
Yeah, well, that would make sense. Very hotly contested in the Eloqua space. Now, how are you? Because you've judged some of these this year, but also previously. Is that right?
Yeah, each year, I think maybe with the exception of a couple, I've been a judge.
If you could give people one tip as they look to maybe 2024 and marquee submissions, what's one tip you would give them as they look to build out their winning entry?
I think it's some of the entries are very long, which is great, but there are hundreds of entries. So if if you can say the same amount in fewer words, that probably helps the judges. It helps be concise and direct. I think it's a combination of telling a good story because people love a good story. They want the award winner to be something that catches people's imaginations and it tells a nice story of success. It doesn't have to be dramatic, because not everybody is in a glitzy kind of industry, but if it tells a great success story, that narrative is helpful. But then it has to be supported by quantitative results because the kind of marking rubric, although it changes a little bit from year to year, has the elements of how well does it fit the category and how well did the applicant demonstrate they had success? Like how did they quantitatively demonstrate the success?
So getting into the numbers and the metrics, off to insight, I suppose, is where you're going to find all that information.
Yeah, like you can it can sound great on paper. That sounds like a wonderful, campaign, but it's hard to tell that it actually drove success or what outcomes did it create. So to the extent that you can articulate that, that's important too.
Well, thank you. I mean, they're all great tips, and it's always fun to get a little bit of a sense of what the event was like, especially for some of us on the other side of the planet. I've been lucky enough to attend one of the events actually, it was just before COVID. Yeah, it was 2019. And it was a great event. So we had a lot of fun. So it'll be fun to head back at some point to get that whole vibe and touch base with everybody. Yeah.
So I did 3 different presentations while there. This isn't any one particular one of them. But what I've done is I've taken some of the elements of those presentations and put it into the slide deck. Like we can keep it conversational. I won't try to just present for 30 minutes nonstop without taking a break, but you got to keep me honest there by asking questions and or I'll keep going on. And I just wanted to give us people a sense of what we discussed in aggregate on the marketing side. A lot of it was around marketing and sales unification, but the kind of the themes of investment in marketing with a particular focus on Eloqua. But happy to talk about anything. So thematically, as a product organization, the macro level trends that we are informing our strategy, our investments can be put into 2 categories. There's what's happening with our customers, and obviously as ourselves as consumers or as employees of a company that have a problem that we're trying to solve from a product or a service that we need from a B2B perspective, or whether it's a consumer need that we have, or somewhere in between. The world has been changing rapidly around us. We have a lot of choices as to how we educate ourselves now. It's even interesting with things like ChatGPT and generative AI and whatnot that there's a lot of conversation now of how SEO is going to fundamentally, search engine optimization may fundamentally change because how people ask questions and inform themselves is changing significantly. Because I don't know if anybody's noticed this, but even in Google lately, if you do a search, they have a generative AI response at the top now before you get like the links down below. They're rolling that out in testing phases. So how we educate ourselves as customers, where we go to seek that knowledge, be it from peers, different social networks, online search, analysts, that is changing rapidly and becoming easier and more frictionless than ever before. So as a brand who wants to educate a consumer that wants to be in front of a consumer to say, hey, we might have a problem or solution or for you, how do you get into those channels? How do you make yourself heard? How do you create that identity? How do you break through the noise? Particularly when people in a B2B perspective probably aren't reaching out to you directly until they're already well educated. But then also more so than ever, people are privacy aware. And it's harder than ever before to track people kind of online without their explicit consent. So how do you generate that consent? Typically, it's, if you come across as a trustworthy brand who will help somebody solve a problem, they're going to kind of opt into hearing from you. So I like to say that you have to convert somebody's trust before you can convert their business. And that's more true than ever before. So then on the business side, it's okay, that's all given. I mean, we've been trying to do this with consumers and B2B brands forever. I mean, we've been talking about right content, right time, right channel for literally 20 years. And what has changed over time is we're actually now at a point from a technology perspective where we're starting to be able to deliver on that promise at scale. The challenge has often been, how do you do this at scale and automatically? Because even if you have your kind of data house in order and you really understand an account or your customers, how do you deploy content in an orchestrated way across multiple channels in a way that is truly contextually relevant or personalized for them? That's a very difficult thing to do at scale, but technology is kind of getting us there. So a lot of talk about a lot of that is informing our direction. One area in particular, so a subset of this that we're very focused on right now on the B2B side, is what we refer to as sales and marketing unification. And I say unification explicitly versus alignment, because we've been talking about sales and marketing alignment for a long time. Sales and marketing need to be aligned, which is true. But our little turn of phrase here is that we don't feel like alignment is enough anymore. The challenge has been, like, with the advent of marketing automation platforms in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, and so forth, and moving from being kind of evangelical to everybody kind of diving in. It certainly helped marketers achieve a lot more from an automation perspective, but it kind of really focused demand generation on the creation of leads, on the irrespective of how well those leads converted later on through the funnel or later on through opportunities, generating lots and lots of MQLs and tossing those over to sales. And then saying, okay, well, sales isn't accepting them, they're not following up on them, they prefer to source their own things, or they get a lead into the system, but then they don't convert the lead. Instead, they open up their own opportunity, even if it was based off of that lead. And now you don't have that connective tissue anymore to understand where the lead came from, and marketing's not getting credit. And this is simply because marketing may be over-indexed on that individual lead qualification, where sales is very much focused on the account and what's happening at the account, and is there the need, is there the budget, and all that other stuff. So that intersection has always been problematic, and no amount of scoring or sales tools kind of really, it's hard to help with that trust. So our focus in the last year has been, how do we fix this alignment problem for good? Account-based marketing has come a long way in helping, but your entire go-to-market can't be ABM. But obviously, this is a leaky pipe. The idea here is that we really believe that marketing should be identifying and really qualifying at an opportunity level, so like at an account/product service level. And identifying that there are emerging buying groups or emerging opportunities based upon the interaction of multiple people at an account with the same campaigns, with content related to a specific product or service, identifying, qualifying, kind of scoring that buying group, at a buying group level, at an opportunity level, and then send that over to sales as like a conversation ready opportunity into Salesforce, into Sales Cloud, into Dynamics, whatever the case might be, so that all the context is there and there's a more true unification between marketing and sales. So I won't get into all the deliverables and details and necessarily of what we've been investing there today, because we don't have enough time for that. But the short version is we're now doing the work. We're using this internally at Oracle to qualify opportunities within the marketing system and send opportunities over to sales. It's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody will have that kind of sales and marketing relationship where they're going to accept opportunities from marketing. So obviously we're still handling leads, but we think this is an important part to target account, kind of cross-sell, upsell. So the other part I would say that's really important there is we've also explicitly, taking the perspective that, selling into your install base, selling into your customer base is very different from trying to acquire new customers. Obviously, you can use your existing customers to identify what your ideal customer profile is, and then use that information to try to find other customers like your existing customers, through a lot of different techniques for lookalike modeling and so forth. But when you know your existing customers, you have a lot of first party data on them, and you have a lot of back office data on them. What products and services do they have? What, if it's a subscription type business, which so many businesses are subscription models these days, it's not just SaaS software. It's you can buy multi-million-dollar major pieces of machinery on a subscription basis, or you can buy tacos from Taco Bell on a subscription basis. So how do you leverage that data to understand your customers, understand what they're in market for, understand their intent, and kind of cross-sell, in-sell into them? Very different motion than kind of demand generation. So using that data, using that kind of unified data to target better has been another big focus. You'll see some of that in the upcoming slides. Having said that, this kind of translates into three primary themes that we're organized around. And this isn't just on the marketing side. This is actually across kind of the front office applications at Oracle: sales, service, commerce, marketing. But they break down into know your customer, orchestrate best practices, and evolve with AI ML. And the know your customer piece, Eloqua for years. So Eloqua obviously has a lot of strength in terms of its ability to do complex segmentation and model things from a demographic, firmographic, behavioral data. You can bring lots of information into custom data objects and relate it back to a contact or an account. You can do some pretty sophisticated, complex segmentation on a lot of data within Eloqua, and then orchestrate from there. But over the last several years, it's been our perspective that while Eloqua is a great tool for that and sufficient for many of our customers and many businesses, you can up-level that by really sort of unifying all of your data, whether that's an internal data lake that you may already have or a data warehousing project. A lot of people are opting to implement customer data platforms. And a customer data platform, if you're confused as to what that might be, or if you're not necessarily familiar with the acronym, you can Google, CDP Institute, go there. They have some great definitions, or you can just go to oracle.com and look at our Unity customer data platform. But a customer data platform is really where you can take customer identities from all different types of interactions, like not just email, but say cookies or phone numbers or mobile application IDs, and just first-party data that comes from many different systems, your ERP system or service system, marketing and sales, and you can truly unify that and build a unified customer profile within the system that is designed for audience building, but also designed to be activated. So designed to be able to be activated out across multiple different channels through a tool like Eloqua. And the other benefit of a customer data platform is its flexibility in modeling your business. So if you, for example, were an automotive company, like selling cars, and you have dealerships all over the place, you can have a contact object just like you have in Eloqua. You could have an account object just like you have in Eloqua. But you could also have a car object, and it's more powerful than a custom data object. It's a database of all the VINs that you've ever sold or leased, and all their details, and who owns them, and what the warranty is, and what the options were, and who's the dealership, and what's the service record, and all of this information can be many to many sort of relationships, where it's a lot of complex data that is at your fingertips to be able to identify where the opportunities are, where the challenges are within your customer base. So the example on the screen here is, a business situation where it's not enough to know that you have a customer that has a particular generator and that this person is the procurement officer, and here's her email. That's good. But all the other things that are listed here can also definitely influence, when should we be reaching out to this person? How can we be relevant to what their needs are? What should we offer them? And all this type of information can be more appropriately stored in a consolidated database like a CDP. You could do it in Eloqua, of course. You could create custom objects for all of this. But I guess our perspective is that your marketing automation platform shouldn't be the single source of truth for all of your enterprise data, but all of your enterprise data is valuable for marketing.
Really interesting to use the automotive experience. We've had a little bit of a experience at Marketing Q working with automotive companies in the past. And unless you've been a marketer in an automotive company, a manufacturer, for example, I don't think you kind of get the complexity of it. It's someone buys the car, but who's actually driving the car? And then, where is it serviced? Is it serviced at one place? Is it a private purchase, or is it actually part of a fleet purchase? Which service information goes to one person, but how to get the most out of the car goes to the driver. Oh, but hang on, there's two. It becomes a data nightmare.
And then the IoT data too now, like the telemetry data, where the car is, and often like literally co-marketing and data sharing to like offer people stuff in the car. So I use it as an example because it straddles sort of the B2B and the consumer worlds a little bit, because a car is a considered purchase, and people do some research on it, just like they might research a B2B problem, but then it also has the consumer angle as well.
Yeah. So tell us about CDP and what was the discussion point there?
Yeah, and I don't want to turn this into like a commercial for a CDP, but it's an important part of our strategy, where we feel that, and you'll see it in an upcoming slide as well. We think to get to the next level, we really need this kind of modern customer data platform, whether it's delivered by Oracle or someone else, underpinning your customer lifecycle efforts. And I say customer lifecycle specifically because it's not just about acquisition; it's also about loyalty and nurturing, and the whole kind of customer engagement lifecycle. And Eloqua is a very strong orchestration execution engine across channels. If you marry that, if you think of that Eloqua as an orchestration or activation layer on top of this enterprise-wide customer data, it becomes very powerful from that perspective. So we're working to build these things very closely, much more closely integrated. It doesn't mean that Eloqua will become dependent on the CDP. It's just that the two together can kind of get you to the next level from an execution perspective. So all of these things that are on the screen are what we feel are necessary to be a proper customer data platform. There's the modeling element of it. There's being a little more prescriptive but extensible from an industry perspective. Every industries like automotive are very different from healthcare, which is very different from semiconductors, which is very different from food and beverage. But all of these industries have commonalities within themselves in terms of the data that they have to model. So some of what we're delivering or trying to deliver with the CDP is kind of intellectual property as around how should you model data in an automotive business, and giving people a starting point there so they don't have to, from a solution architecture perspective, figure it out all by themselves. It needs to scale, it needs the privacy elements. You need to be able to control who can see what within the CDP. And it needs to be highly available to this data. Once you have the data in place, you need to be able to derive insights from it automatically, and that data needs to be available to stream to, say, an orchestration platform like Eloqua, to inform not just email delivery and content, but next best actions, next best offers, web personalization, pushing audiences to advertising platforms like Facebook or Google or LinkedIn. So big part of our focus there. This is just a quick sort of image of the segmentation area in Unity, where you can see lots of different master kind of objects and things modeled, but then also insights at an account level that are coming out of that data, such as opportunity scores and next best action and average order in a consumer scenario, average order value and stuff like that. All of that data can be brought to bear to your marketing efforts. It also
just on CDP, we've had some interesting press here in the Australian market recently, which is kind of good to have someone talking about CDP besides the big tech companies, and so they've hit it pretty hard, as in, what is this CDP really? Is it just another acronym? And what was really interesting was there's this big breadth of definition, right from, one definition was, if it's got APIs, that's fine. We can just put a whole bunch of APIs together and bang, we'll call that a CDP. Then there was another example of an agency who were on a call, happened to be with one of your reps, funnily enough. And the client the agency told the client, you've got to have a CDP, you've got to have a CDP. As they went through the conversation, the agency was really trying to push them onto a DMP. At which point the client basically said to the agency, hang up and leave the call. I'm going to have this conversation with Oracle. So that was likely for you guys. But what it really illustrates, these press, he's done like 3 articles over the last month and a bit. What it's really emphasized is just a little bit of confusion, I think, within the market as to what it is. Now, you referenced a little bit earlier, you have a great definition right there, I think, but you also talked about the CDP Institute. And that's a good place to go to just get a level set for, what is a CDP? If I'm shopping, obviously Oracle's a great place to go. But if I'm shopping, what is it actually going to be, and what is it going to do for me?
Well, and obviously you start with the problems you're trying to solve, right? Versus like, what's this shiny new toy? And exactly. It's a bit of a balance between what's the the job to be done here. It's not just better segmentation, that's part of it, but it's the fact that it can truly bring together multiple different. Your first party data is more important than ever before, as it gets harder and harder to track people from a third party data perspective. So bringing all that first party data together, unifying it in a way that you truly have like a one perspective of who an account is or who a customer is, so that you can talk to them in a relevant way across all those channels is a challenging thing to do. And an off-the-shelf CDP that's designed explicitly for that purpose and isn't just a data warehouse, but has the ability to match things together and deduplicate and unify profiles in an intelligent fashion, and then help drive insights out of that. It's like one of the primary purposes of a CDP.
You haven't touched on this yet. Well, not as much, but I was thinking more as well about Eloqua's capability around listening, just to be able to understand how your audiences are engaging. So you might have all the first party data in the world, but you don't know really what people are interested in. It's like you've laid out your shop beautifully, but you don't really know where people are looking, or they haven't told you they might be interested. And you can't just assume they're going to go straight to the till, right? They might walk in and they might walk out, they might come back again. So I think that digital body language piece also plays into all of this, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I should, so obviously Eloqua's been able to do that kind of tracking for years, but part of the CDP offering is something that we call Unity Behavioral Intelligence, and what that's driven by, you may be familiar with the name that we used to call it, which was Infinity. And what that is very precise understanding of digital interactions on a website or in an app. There's an SDK that can be integrated into your mobile app, and that's precisely like, where did they scroll on the page, how much of that video did they watch, did they put something into the basket but didn't check out. Like, all of these events can be captured in a fine grain of detail that is not possible at that level with Eloqua today. And those events get streamed into the CDP. So the behavior, it's not just data like demographic, firmographic information. It's also that behavioral data, but it also can be streamed directly into Eloqua, and Eloqua can listen for events, and things can be triggered in Eloqua. The obvious consumer example is the cart abandonment, where somebody puts a bunch of stuff in the cart and then doesn't check out. That can go to Eloqua right away, and it could trigger an email. It could trigger some kind of follow-up or an update on a record. But there's great B2B use cases to that as well. I might get to this in a moment, but I've also changed how we think of journeys from being these progressions of you build on the campaign canvas where they aren't necessarily linear. You can have a bunch of decisions. And as you said, people walk around the store, leave, they might come back to the store, and so you need to be able to kind of sense and respond to that behavior versus just hoping they follow a linear kind of progression.
And the same, yeah, exactly the same in B2B, where you might have opportunities, multiple decision makers. For one reason or other, the organization decides they're not going to proceed at this time and they're going to revisit it in a year's time. And the only insight you're going to get to those contacts, and maybe even different contacts on that opportunity coming back and kind of reactivating, is going to be but those behavioral insights to say, oh, they came back to this page, or they came to this event, or they re-downloaded some information.
Absolutely. And what are other people at the same account doing? So once you have your data house in order, or if you have your data house in order, it's not enough to have all that data in one location. What do you actually do with it? And that's where the orchestration comes into play. Now, this is not Eloqua specific, but more of what do we feel is necessary for like true kind of best practices or modern marketing, if you will, these days. And a lot of this could all be satisfied by Eloqua today. But when you have like Eloqua again on top of a customer data platform, it kind of supercharges the whole thing. But really kind of unifying where you're doing marketing orchestration from. One of the big challenges our customers have is that they have different teams. So it's a people problem that are responsible for different channels. There's the email team, there's the web team, like a digital team, there's an media buyers, an advertising team. They all have different budgets. They all are measured differently from a metric standpoint. So they're not even necessarily incented the same way. So when you have these disparate silos of people and tools, it's really hard to create a consistent, effective customer experience because people silos and tool silos create data silos. So if you can unify that data and then you can orchestrate across channels from the same location, that means you can be, if somebody interacts with an email, that interaction can be used to drive what they see next on the website. Those interactions can be used to pull somebody out of an advertising campaign. So you're not wasting, dollars on impressions for somebody who is never going to buy from you or has already bought from you. That type of coordination and being able to do this at scale. One of the benefits of Oracle that we can bring to the table is that we offer a complete set of front office and back office applications, but we're also very open and extensible. Most of our customers are hybrid. They have technology from a bunch of different people. But to the extent that you have Oracle applications, they are all running on the same infrastructure. They all have access to the same services. We're vertically and horizontally integrated as an organization, so we can optimize on that to some degree. But the area that we've also been putting a lot of investment into is how do we make this easier for people to use? And that's where you see the simplified and guided workflows. The campaign canvas has been around for a long time. It's very capable, but it can also be daunting if you're relatively new to marketing automation. Well, what do I do? The world is my oyster, but I don't know where to start, even if I have templates. So 80% of the time you're doing probably the similar things over and over again. It's a multi-step nurture. It's a webinar invitation. It's a target account. It's an upsell campaign to a list of target accounts with a specific offer. These things are very repeatable. So what we've done is we've built a guided kind of process flow to walk people through creating these very common tactics to try to lower the bar or the barriers to entry of how to do these things quickly and repeatably. So part of it has been investment in a new user experience that aligns to the newer Oracle standard that we call Redwood, which will kind of up-level Eloqua to be more consistent across the board. Eloqua has been around for a long time. There are different experiential elements in it. So we're trying to make that more consistent across the product, again, to make it easier to use, more approachable. But the guided campaigns are, what I just described. And then we're also doing functional enhancements, and you'll hear about this in our roadmap calls that we put on top liners and promote from a webinar perspective. But I'll touch on a few things today. The Open Reporting API is a new API that talks directly to Eloqua Insight. So those are the data warehouse tables, the reporting that is in Eloqua that is like an Oracle Business Intelligence tool that you get that is part of your Eloqua subscription and has all of your Eloqua data in it. Previously, that wasn't accessible. You have the bulk API, which will allow you to pull data out at a very granular level, but you couldn't get at the data that's in that report that was already pre-calculated and it's already calculating campaign ROI. It's already calculating how this activity was related to this campaign. How can I just want to have access to that data, and now you can. So it's a new API that is in controlled availability that uses an open standard that allows everything like not just Oracle tools, but Tableau, Power BI, even an Excel workbook can connect directly to your Eloqua instance and pull data into it. So that we're really excited about that, and we've got some great feedback from the early adopters. And we continue to invest in SMS as well. SMS was brought natively to Eloqua. So we've had apps that allow you to do SMS through Eloqua for a long time, but it requires a third-party relationship. Now with Oracle and with Eloqua, we can handle the SMS aggregator relationship directly for you, and Oracle is the only vendor you have to deal with. And we can deliver SMS natively as part of Eloqua, so all the reporting, all the activity behaves just like an email, for example.
The big thing there too is the reporting, as you said, and also the integration from a segmentation point of view, being able to bring in SMS behavior to segments. Did they open? No. Was it sent? Yes, no. Clicked in? Yes, no. Yeah, that's a big plus.
Yeah.
The Oracle
point. Yeah, before it was a bit of a handoff, right? Okay, yeah, you can send an SMS, just push the message to an actual SMS vendor. Now we're doing that, we're handling that natively. So it's just a bit of a screenshot of kind of the new sort of My Eloqua homepage from a design perspective. But over the next several quarters, we're rolling out several new areas of redesign within Eloqua. The contacts overview, for example, area has changed significantly for significant new information being presented, much easier to navigate, much better use of real estate. This is optional for people to, customers can turn it on or off at an individual user level. So if you don't want to expose your users to a change, you can control that. You can test the waters yourself, and then you can roll it out to your users if you like. The guided campaigns, if you haven't seen it, this is a kind of a sped up version of going through the wizard, creating a target account campaign. It's very prescriptive because it's selling a specific product to a target account. It asks you up front, from your product hierarchy, what is it that you're selling? It then uses that information to help identify a potential audience, or it can be a segment that already exists in Eloqua. And then with that cross section of the audience and the industries that are in that audience and the product, it actually recommends content. So if you have content that's tagged by products and industries, it'll come up as recommendations based upon the audience that you picked. And then you choose email template, landing page template. Those templates get dynamically personalized with the content from the prior step, and the campaign gets deployed. So if you're familiar with the simple campaign UI in Eloqua, it's kind of like a much more advanced version of a simple campaign that has a lot of different moving parts and executes an orchestration in Eloqua, just like any other orchestration, but walks somebody through a wizard and then has bespoke analytics on the performance of that campaign as well. It's just an example of one tactic. It's very prescriptive, but we've added other tactics like a webinar invitation and a multi-step nurture. So these are like, the common things that you might want to do. I talked about the reporting API. The webhook app is something we're really excited about. The app framework has been around with Eloqua forever, and it's been used very effectively for just functionality inside of Eloqua, like a contact washing machine and things like that, or the form submit app where you can create form submissions as part of an orchestration in order to trigger processing. Or partners have been building apps for many years. They think the LinkedIn Campaign Manager app is used by something like 500 or 600 different Eloqua customers. The webinar apps are incredibly popular, but they all had a specific purpose. This new webhook app is kind of like is your generic, give me some data, I can push that data to any other endpoint or any other product, any other MarTech, sales tech, whatever service system that can receive data. So think of it as being able to like kind of post a form submission or take a contact data and some other information as part of an orchestration in Eloqua and send it to any destination, any other internal tool or external third-party tool that can receive data through an API or through like a form type of an endpoint. So it really kind of opens up the world of kind of linking your products together without having to have a bespoke app to do so. I'll explain what's going on here without going through the animation because we can share that out maybe to the audience later. But the next step of tactics. So I talked about guided campaigns. The next step that we're taking this is being able to take a bunch of these tactics, like a target account campaign, like a webinar promotion, like a nurture, and roll them all together as part of an overarching program. So in this case, the program might be HCM is a product Oracle sells, human capital management. So there may be a program where I'm trying to position human capital management in Asia Pacific to the high tech industry. And as part of that overarching program, I'm executing 3 marketing tactics. There's this target account campaign, there's a webinar promotion, and there's a nurture. And each one of these campaigns has entry criteria, like when would somebody qualify to be sent this email for the target account campaign, and success criteria. What is the thing that I want them to do? If you're familiar with the idea of a campaign response in Eloqua, it's similar, but being very explicit about what action do we want to have happen if somebody interacts with this campaign. If it's a webinar promotion, the success is probably a registration. If it's a nurture, it may just be consuming the content. But when you have explicit entry criteria and explicit success criteria for every campaign, you can start measuring things and triggering things as events in a lot more interesting ways. You can say, if a click-through was the success criteria, then you can measure the success based upon, well, how many clicks is it generating? If it's registrations, and you can be very clear about how many registrations did it generate, how many views did this nurture campaign generate, and that success criteria can be used as an event or as a trigger for a subsequent action. So it's a kind of a different approach from the canvas where you lay things out with decision steps pointing back and forth to each other and what can become quite complex, to just thinking of a program as a number of different tactics and how those tactics interrelate to each other. So this is something that we're working on from a roadmap perspective. It's still very much kind of going through an ideation phase, but I wanted to share it just to give you a sense of where we're going conceptually.
Yeah, I think that's interesting thoughts there about stuff like this could free you up to do other things that are maybe slightly more targeted or more revenue focused, etc. And this can kind of take care of a lot of the busyness that you're kind of involved in as a user from day to day.
And also some of the sort of like content strategy. What's the content strategy for this campaign, this program? What's most people have program codes and kind of like a level of like MRM type of, we're not building an MRM system, but they do want to have an overarching kind of understanding of all these campaigns are related to the same program and the same, perhaps cost center and things like that. So this gives more of a structure to be thoughtful about the kind of the program strategy and the content strategy of a campaign. Maybe a couple more things. This is a visualization of an account. So this is being built for Unity today. Similar, if you have the new user experience in Eloqua, the new contact record looks something similar to this. because it's the same design pattern. But this particular screen happens to be from Unity, and it's at an account level. So you can see what products and services this account has. It's identified like a specific buying group within the account. It shows all the campaign engagement across the account, and it gets into other things, private, security willing, like open opportunities and so forth. So just trying to be, have that more of the account focus in our DNA. And then generative AI. I talked at the beginning about this being a big thing for us. So Oracle negotiated a big partnership with a company called Cohere, which is actually based in Toronto, where I live here in Toronto. But Cohere is like a large enterprise, large language model. So it's like ChatGPT, but kind of enterprise grade with security and whatnot built in. So Cohere is now being running on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as an OCI service. And that means it's available to Oracle products to use as a service. So Eloqua and other products are going through all the use cases of, well, where can we start to leverage this? There's some obvious things like content generation, content summarization, giving within Eloqua, maybe providing a long form white paper and asking for it to be summarized into 5 bullet points or into content more appropriate for an email, or giving the transcript of a 30-minute conversation with a customer and having that turned into a blog post, subject line generation, but then also using kind of natural language for segment creation, rather than all the points and clicks and drag and drops that you do in segmentation today, being able to phrase what you're trying to generate and have that turned into a segment, the start of a segment that you could then adjust. So the idea here is, you've got a template and you can provide prompt information like region, industry, products, and you've got a database of content that's all tagged with these things. The model can take those prompts and then can generate multiple different versions of that template based upon the prompts that you provided it. So that's something that we're working on right now. That's kind of fun.
That's fun, but there's real benefit there at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, I just quickly looking, we did have some questions submitted. Just looking here, though, today we have none from anyone on the line today. So everyone's obviously either engrossed in what you're saying, and they're getting it. There was a question submitted from Laurie. Now, Laurie, I can see you're on the line. Yes, you are. Your question related to GoToWebinar and some issues that you were having there. What I might do is try and take that offline because it's reasonably detailed, but I'll get to that. There was another question submitted by Rachel from the US. And Rachel says, with privacy being so important nowadays, will customer success managers or Oracle reps be able to help other customers implement GDPR-style double opt-ins? I thought that was an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It's come up a lot for many years. In Canada, we've had CASL, which has required double opt-in for probably 6 or 7 years now. Right. So we've got a lot of experience with that. I can't speak for the CSM, individual CSMs specifically, but we do have best practice. The deliverability team is an organization that's within the product organization. They certainly have best practices for that. Our technical account managers, our Center of Excellence team, which are like CSMs. We have tried and true approaches for doing this in Eloqua, and I think most of our customer-facing teams have been, enabled with that information, and we can either assist or provide it depending on the roles, and I'm sure you guys probably can as well.
Yeah,
as a partner.
Yeah, we've worked with a range of clients, both in our region, outside the region, especially in the GDPR world. Having to be compliant, especially with some companies who are based maybe within the Asia Pacific region, but doing work in Europe, etc., and having to be compliant. And same with North America and other locations. So it's a reasonably common request.
Yeah, there was a question in the Q&A around generative AI, which was wondering if this is something that would be included for all accounts, or is it an additional fee? We're still determining it. We want to, the direction that we're going in is that we want to make some sort of like base level of AI ML available in the platform, because we feel it's becoming table stakes. And certain things like subject line kind of optimization or generation, we want to just make it available as part of the platform, and then up level AI ML in other places. When it comes to like taking a large piece of content and summarizing it, or taking a transcript and turning that into, say, bullet points, that takes more calories from an engine, like from a engineering perspective to do it. It costs us money basically to generate this stuff. So we probably need to think of a model where some things can be included in the subscription price, but there needs to be, for the higher end use cases that are really crunching through a lot of processing power and data, there may need to be some costs associated to that, since it doesn't come for free.
Maybe you need to go and buy Cohere.
Yeah.
Checkbook and go shopping, right?
Well, it's certainly going to be a benefit to the Oracle's cloud infrastructure business, because people need compute power more than ever before.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Well, look, we've just gone a little bit over. Unless there aren't any other questions, we just answered that one, haven't we? Yeah, okay, cool. But otherwise, Stephen, look, thank you so much for joining us. We will get some information out to people from this event. We'll have the recording process within a week or so. We'll also send some information to a recent blog post that we did following Cloud World. And there's a bit of information in there about Cohere and some links and press conference links from Oracle as well about the conference and about the AI exercise of kind of where that's heading and what we're doing. So thank you for giving us a bit of the inside scoop and helping us understand what was going on at Cloud World in Las Vegas this year. We appreciate you making time.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, Adrian, for
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Derek.